know your exit strategies, and most of all, I think, aside from sticking with the plan, run your numbers before you make a dive.
Welcome back, everybody. Rodrigo, Afanador here with Asheville Real Estate News. Really excited about this episode. And I don't know if you know much about tiny homes. I'm not very well versed in that, but we're going to tell you talking about what mistakes you may want to avoid as you get into it. You know, how to not lose $10,000 on a tiny home. But before we get into that, a little bit of house cleaning. If you haven't checked out episode 25 yet, do so. Get all your predictions for 2018 in the real estate market. You can find out what people are thinking is going to happen. So remember, episode 25, find that on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, anywhere you hang out on social media. That's where we are. And don't forget to drop us a comment. Let us know what you think and who you'd like to see on or what questions you want to see us address. In the meantime, how to not lose $10,000 on a tiny home. So let's get into it. Paula, thank you for joining us today. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, Rodrigo.
Asheville has this mystic feel to it, being in the mountains and everything, the Blue Ridge and whatnot. I came here in 2009, and it seems like everybody's got their own story as how Asheville became home for them. But how'd you end up here? How long have you been here, and what do you do?
Wow. So I've been here for 4 years.
Okay.
And I first came here because I was dating someone who lived here. So I moved to the area. My relationship with Asheville lasted longer than my relationship with him. And so I'm still here. And it's a beautiful place to be.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And what do you do here in Asheville, or are you in real estate full time?
No, I'm just a beginner in real estate, which is why I made so many mistakes that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
But I'm an adjunct physics instructor at the University of North Carolina at Asheville.
Okay.
So yeah. That's
Very
what
cool.
I do.
So from physics to real estate, how did that transition happen? How did you decide you wanted to get into the real estate game, and maybe how did you go from real estate overall to a tiny home niche?
Well, like a lot of people, I read that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
That's what got me started.
And I started thinking about it, and I've been involved in real estate groups wherever I've lived.
Okay.
Ever since that. As soon as I got here, I joined the real estate group, and I have to put in a plug. CREA, the Carolina Real Estate Investment Association, is like one of the best real estate associations I've been in.
It's a good place to get connected with like-minded people, isn't it?
Yeah, the networking is wonderful.
Yeah. Agreed. Obviously.
Yeah, that's how I
good things
knew
to
you.
say. Yeah, that's how we met. So, of course, good place to hang out. So you came here, got involved in CREA. Started thinking about what to do next.
Yep.
And you decided on a tiny home.
Yeah, well, actually, I didn't decide. That was sort of an accident.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what's that story?
Ooh, well, yeah, this is how you learned your lessons. All right, so what's that story? The story was that my mother died, and my brother and I split the house. I sold him my half, so I had a small chunk of money, and I thought, I'm going to invest this money.
Okay.
I figure I'd be safe, let's just do a private loan or maybe invest in notes.
Right.
And there's a private money group, and I spoke to somebody who had come to the private money group about loaning money. He says, I know some people that want to borrow money, and I wound up at the Village of Wildflowers.
Down in Hendersonville.
Right. East Flat Rock, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so they were interested in borrowing money, and then I heard about this tiny home, and somebody said, you could make 20% off of this tiny home. It's located in a beautiful spot. It's a really nice home, and
how do you not get excited about 20%? That's a great number.
That's a great number.
Yeah, of course.
So I jumped.
And you pulled the trigger.
I pulled the trigger.
And the 20%, how were you going to be making that? Were you going to be renting it out, reselling it to somebody else and making that on your margins, or is it a cash flow deal, or what was the 20% going to come from?
Yeah, good question. So I was hoping to resell it and make it on my margins. There was a big discount on it. It was already established. There was going to be no installation expense. Yeah, so looked like it would be easy.
Gotcha. And then you purchased it. It was not easy.
It was not easy.
Okay, so you went and bought it. How long ago was that roughly?
So that was in November. It was just before Thanksgiving in
of last year.
2016. 2016?
So November 2016.
Right, because I sold it like 9 or 10 months later in October 2017.
Okay, so it's a 10-month painful journey, huh? Educating, as we were saying, though, it's like your education can be quite the painful experience when you're out here getting your hands dirty in the process.
You know,
right?
it can, and I've read that when you feel fear, like fear for your life, that you learn things really, really, really well. So I think this learning is way deeper than my physics students' learning, which is probably fortunate. I don't want them fearing for their lives.
No, I agree. It's I'm a big Tony Robbins fan, and he always talks about is your physical state. If you can put yourself in a good state, physically speaking, and then anything you learn at that moment is heightened. And you retain it better. So
is fear a good state? I don't know.
He's not necessarily saying like the fear is, but I mean, arguably it could be a great state though, because as long as you're not afraid of going out and doing it again, you're definitely not going to be making the same mistakes again. I don't know if I can speak for you, but I'm guessing that I know for myself, like my first 4 properties that I purchased were absolute miserable experiences, and I did terrible on all of them, but they set the stage for where I haven't repeated any of those mistakes again, thankfully. And the learning curve has been exponential after that.
Oh, yeah. And there were so many learning points on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, starting from, I think it was just a few days after I purchased it, I realized I should get an inspection.
After you purchased it.
Yeah, right. So there was my first lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Ordinarily, right, you should get the inspection before you purchase it. So I was going, the problem, there were so many different difficulties, and one of the things was that I was going off script.
Right.
I had my plan for how I'm going to do these loans and the steps I'm going to take, and then here, boom, I'm off script, and I'm just, winging it.
Exciting possibility, and you're like, I'm going that way.
I'm going that way, let's do it. So let's get the home inspection. And I got in the home inspector. He was wonderful. A fellow named Duncan down in Hendersonville. He was fabulous. Found so many things, and I saw this because I went down there just to look at it, make sure it would be ready. If I can't sell it right away, maybe I can rent it
or whatnot.
Okay, and I saw a bunch of things that caused me to think, if I can see these things, then I wonder what an inspector would see.
Well, trained guys will be able to see them.
Oh my! So what he found made me reluctant to let anybody into the place until those things were fixed. So so it was months before they got fixed. Because it was still under warranty, and the Village of Wildflowers was having difficulties, and they didn't get around to fixing them for months.
Oh boy. So obviously anytime you have a 10-month experience where not very many things go well, there's learning points throughout the whole process. And I don't know if you've had time to reflect or do you have like a big takeaway, like your number one, if you were gonna zero in on one thing and you're like, that's the most important thing I learned in all of that, what would it be?
Right. So I think the most important thing that I learned is to stay on script. That focus is really important. Because, when I'm on script, then I'm benefiting not only from my own intuition, but also from what I've been learning from people like yourself, from things that I've been reading. And so my opportunities to make mistakes are way, way less. So that'd be it.
You have your game plan, and so you're staying.
Stick with the game plan, yeah. And you can change the game plan, but sleep on it. Right. Before you do it. I didn't sleep on it.
Right. So I know, obviously, buying something, you have to. Anytime you own something, there's a monthly cost associated with it. So I'm curious to know, and putting you on the spot here a little bit, the money that, a lot of the loss, did that come from holding cost, from just owning it longer than you were anticipating? Or was there something else that was like the big numeric pain number that was associated with it, if you will?
Wow. So.
And 10 months of holding costs is a long time. I would not, I've been there, and that hurts.
It was, yeah. So there were a number of things that were painful. And of course, there was lot rent, because I didn't own the property that it was sitting on. And that I felt like I could handle. That was, I mean,
manageable.
Just barely, right? But that was my calculation. And that's pretty much all that I was planning to spend, and that was $575 per month. And
that adds up quickly.
It adds up pretty quickly. The Village of Wildflowers is an upscale tiny home community. It's really nice, and it's getting better all the time. So that was one, and then there were other big surprises. I have to say that if I had used my lawyer from the beginning and far more often, it would have cost me about $1,000, $2,000 total, but it would have saved me a bunch more thousands and so much headache.
Yeah, well, there's something about being said about working with professionals in the areas, and
for sure,
it's it can always save a lot of headache. I can't swing a hammer to save my life, and so any of the stuff we do, I'm very much hands off when it comes to actual repairs, because I found that I do more harm than good.
Yeah, it's true. But there were other things too. There was one month when there were $5,000 or $8,000 worth of expenses, and they were of things like taxes, right? So you purchase something, you need to pay taxes. There were all sorts of surprises, besides the legal fees and, getting the energy started, lots and lots of basic things. Since I hadn't owned a house before, period, many of these things were surprises.
Owning real estate, there's a lot of hidden costs that come with it that you don't always anticipate. So how did you get out of it? What was the solution? And was the loss that was just you made less money than you were hoping, or did you have to write a check at the end of the day?
Did I have to write a check at the end of the day? And yes, I did effectively have to write a check at the end of the day, although the house sold for more than I bought it for.
Okay.
But of course not enough to make up for
the money that you'd already put into it.
Right. And so how did I wind up getting out of it? I wound up, the short story is that the Village of Wildflowers helped me to sell it.
Okay, great.
Jacob Lyons was working there. He was great at getting people in and showing off its good points, and it showed really, really well. It's a beautiful little place on a beautiful site. And I also worked with a couple of other people who were in the Korea group. Bob Swanson and his wife, Lynn. They were fabulous. And they coached me a lot, because my communication style wasn't as efficient as was optimal for the particular situation, right? So I tend to give way too much information when I'm trying to communicate with people, and sometimes that just makes things worse rather than better.
Yeah, it's always a touchy subject with how to communicate, especially in a sales situation. Yep. How much is too much, and how much is do you need to give?
Yeah, and Bob is really good at just cutting right to the chase.
Yeah, well, we've had him on. He's actually going to be. He was just on one that got released last week, I think, and it's his second time.
Is that right?
26, I think. It might be 27, but yeah. Oh no, well this is 27, so 26, yeah. And he's knowledge, so much knowledge with him. So yeah, he's always great to chat with. Yeah. So you got rid of it, you sold it. That was about you said October, right?
It was October
of last year, and so. I know we were talking a little bit about email, about you coming on and chatting, and why are you sharing your story? Not everybody wants to talk about that, especially something of that magnitude, and everybody now these days typically if they go out in public they're like, oh, look what I did, and you're like, hey, look, this is what I did and it wasn't good. So what spurred you to be willing to talk and share and
to want to share? Yeah, well, I'm usually not embarrassed about my mistakes, for good or bad, and I really think that other people can stand to benefit. Get a lawyer, get an inspection ahead of time. Sleep on your decisions. Know your exit strategies, and most of all, I think, aside from sticking with the plan, run your numbers before you make a dive. 20% sounds great, but if I had run the numbers,
you'd have seen that.
I would have seen it.
Might not have been so realistic, huh?
Right, that's right.
Fair enough. And so, was that your first investment purchase?
That was my first.
And am I summarizing correctly? You said your biggest takeaway if somebody's thinking about making their first investment is to run their numbers? So I've never purchased real estate before. I'm thinking about it and I'm on the edge. I say, Paula, I need a golden nugget from you. What is it?
Yeah, so originally I had said stick with the plan.
Yeah. That was your takeaway, right?
That was my takeaway, but run the numbers I think would probably be the advice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So that would be the takeaway for others.
Out of curiosity though, how big is your house? How big
How
was
big
it?
was it?
Yeah.
Well, it was just under 400 square feet of living space.
Okay.
With a beautiful wraparound porch. So it was great.
400.
One bedroom. What's that?
Said 400 square
I
feet.
know, it was small. Let's see.
Yeah.
Compared to this room.
Probably about the size of the room.
Yeah, a little bit bigger. Not
Yeah.
much.
And how much did it sell for?
It sold for $70,000.
Wow.
Which is a pretty good price because it sold as used.
Gotcha. Wow.
In the Village of Wildflowers. So that's a pretty good price for the Village of Wildflowers because, like I said, they offer a lot.
Amenities. Yeah, I was there, I think 4 years ago, so maybe 3 years ago. So it was before it is what it is now. So it's been a while.
Yeah.
But I have heard great things. But Paula, thank you so much for joining us today.
It was a pleasure, Rodrigo.
And good luck on your second purchase. I hope it is forthcoming in the near future, so you have a better story to tell next time.
Me too.
Yeah, best of luck.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for checking it out, everybody. As you heard from Paula, run your numbers before you get into your next one, and stick to your game plan. Those are two good pieces of advice. If you found this helpful, let us know below. Hit us up in the comment sections, and remember, check us out on iTunes, Instagram, and YouTube, and Facebook. Look forward to the next one. Take care, everybody.